Welcome in, everybody. Josh here from the 8-Bit Goonies, and I've got a good video for you today. It's something I've been working on for a long time now, something I've really been thinking about. There's a lot of negative videos out there about GameStop right now, and rightfully so. They've made some really poor business decisions, and I'm going to talk about some of those today. But I'm going to take you back in time. I want to go back to the golden age of GameStop, before it was even GameStop, when I worked under the Babbages, etc. banner, and the integration of Funco Land and Electronics Boutique and all of the mergers that occurred. But I want to take you back in time and tell you my experiences working with GameStop and the awesome glory days of the game store. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. I started in early 1999, before the Dreamcast, before the PS2. We had Nintendo 64s on the wall and PS1s on the wall. Not the minis, the original clunkers. That's what we were selling. I started, I was in college, and I was working 4 to 8 hours a week for GameStop. So it was Babbages at the time. Very busy store, very loyal clientele. We made a lot of money, and I'm going to get into the culture and the employees and what we looked for and all of that. And I know there's this kind of GameStop with the auto parts guy that's taken over. He's trying some new initiatives, and I think GameStop's doomed. They're delaying the inevitable, but the reason why is their own fault, and we'll get into that. So yeah, I worked from about early 99 till 2004. I started again part-timer, 8 hours a week, sometimes 4 hours a week. We'd had 4-hour shifts back then, because then they didn't have to give you a break in your 4-hour shift. And I worked all the way up to manager, and I've managed 3 different stores in my 5-year time span there. When I started, there was no game subscriptions or magazine subscriptions. Game Informer hadn't been purchased yet. We had no magazines to sell. Strategy guides were an afterthought. Even pre-orders were a thing, but they weren't pressed. They were more for the hardcore gamers, just to ensure they got that launch title. We didn't push it on anybody. We always offered that it was there, but it wasn't a big push. We could still answer the phone. Thank you for calling Babbages. How may I help you? By the time we ended it, thank you for calling GameStop, where you can pre-order blah, 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 and you can subscribe to Game Informer. How can I help you today? And it was like you had to sell people the second they started walking in the door. So I started in this store. Literally, they had so many applicants at the time. I felt so lucky to get in the door, and I got taken to the back wall, and I was told, this is your baby. This is what you're going to do here. And I looked, and it was the $20 and under big box PC game wall that was given to me, and I was just in heaven. This was the best. It had King's Quest and Covert Action and XCOM and Fallout and all of the, System Shock and System Shock 2 were on the wall, and it was like, this was my sanctuary, and I was so happy. And they gave that to me to organize and to sell and to learn, and I just adored it. And I did such a good job that within, I want to say 2 months or so, I was immediately promoted up to 20 hours a week, and then shortly thereafter given what they called the third key, which is basically the assistant to the assistant manager, 30 to 35 hours a week. And all this time I'm still balancing with school, but it was one of those jobs that you could easily, there was plenty of hours. We were open from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m., so there's plenty of hours to get in around my school schedule. So this was a perfect job. As a huge gamer, I just loved it. So let's get into the culture a little bit of the store. First off, with the employees, we hired gamers. The store manager was a huge racing fan. He loved, I remember when Project Gotham came out, and he was Gran Turismo, and that was his bag. The assistant manager was an RPG guy, console RPG guy. He was all about the Final Fantasies and the Chrono Triggers and that style of gaming. We had another guy that was a part-timer that was really into that. We had our EverQuest guy that was just that's all he ever played was EverQuest, and he knew it inside and out. I was the resident PC gamer. I played all the new PC games, all the old PC games. I talked PC shop with anybody that wanted to come in there. We had a guy who was a hacker type guy back in the day. He was super smart with computers. When Dreamcast came out, he had a peer-to-peer download system where you could log on to his computer, download Dreamcast games and movies that would play on your Dreamcast, burn them to disk, and they would work just fine. I mean, that is the culture that you want to have, and we all lived and loved games, and it showed with the customers. As I said, there was no KPIs. There was no goals to meet. We didn't have to have so many subscriptions in a day or so many pre-orders on a game. And in fact, at this time, pre-orders were driven more by the companies, the game developers, than they were by GameStop or Babbages. So, for instance, I remember with Halo launching, we would get a crate. It would be full of T-shirts and maybe 3 copies of the game and a controller and some stickers and this and that. And it was like literally, you are free to do with what you want. Run an in-game or an in-store contest. Whoever gets the most pre-orders gets a copy of the game. Take a copy for yourself as the store manager. And they did this, I remember, with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 did that. So a lot of the big launches did that. Some of the Final Fantasy games, Squaresoft with Bethesda, you'd get the Morrowind and the Elder Scrolls games. They'd send you these, with all sorts of giveaways. And that's what drove the pre-orders. So I would tell my employees, look, I've got 2 copies of Halo 2. Whoever gives the most pre-orders this week on this X game or Y game or Halo itself, you're going to get copies of these. So it was really driven by the game developers and not by the GameStop itself. So that was, and it was really not, you had to meet these goals, but if you want a good little handout, then go for it. We drove our business based off of good customer loyalty and customers come to us to hang out. I remember Wednesday mornings would be new game day, and they were crazy. You would have your regulars, all your regulars. I don't know, they didn't have jobs, whatever. They'd be there Wednesday morning waiting for the FedEx and the UPS guy to show up, because when the new boxes opened, it was like Christmas for all of us. There might be a new game in there that you weren't expecting, or that you just didn't know was coming out, or it was coming out, but you didn't know it was today. And on those big launch dates, holy moly, Diablo 2 and Icewind Dale comes to mind. Those games launched on the same day. And I remember having stacks of Diablo 2 behind me and a little stack of Icewind Dale. And I took them both home that day, but you'd have customers coming in, and it was like a frenzy, a madhouse, but there was so much energy and good vibe. And it wasn't, oh, did you buy the strategy guide and pre-order this and make sure you get... No, it was like, let's talk about Diablo today. This is a celebration of this game. And I think a lot of that has been lost. Now, I saw it start to develop early on. So when I started, I didn't even know we had a district manager. I didn't know there was a management system like that. I honestly didn't see a district manager until the Funco merger and the GameStop rebranding occurred. Then, not only did I see the district manager once a month or twice a month, but she had a crony named Al, and he would come into the store, I don't know, once a week, show up unannounced and just start looking at inspections. Are you doing this? That was towards the end. That was, 2003, 2004, when I realized this is no longer the gaming culture I want. This is no longer the vibe that I signed up for. I'm out of here. And it came on slowly, but it was definitely introduced. Are you getting your subscriptions? Are you getting your, and pressure sales stuff? Why didn't you ask? Literally, they would hover and listen to you. That was towards the end. That's when I realized, no. When I first started, the golden age, as I'm talking about, there was none of that. There was no pressure sales. Let's talk about games. Let's get these customers happy and thinking about games and not thinking about pre-orders and subscriptions and selling them up on this and have you bought that. And So anyway, another huge perk that I want to talk about was the checkout system. So this was a thing, and a lot of people, it's controversial, but as an employee, it sure was, and I was super happy it was there. So literally, there was a checkout book, and every night when we closed, you could take home whatever you wanted. You could check out. As long as there was another copy in the store that we could sell to a customer, or on the used stuff, it didn't matter at all. So you could take a game home, whatever game you wanted. You could take a PC game home, open it, install it, as long as there weren't keys you had to use. And a lot of games back then, they didn't have the keys for, so you could just install them and play them. And it was sure. Then we bring them back to the store and shrink wrap them and sell them as new copies. So that was a little shady. That's where the controversy comes in. But the benefit to this system is we knew our shit. Everybody played every game, new releases. If you were into it, if it was your style, you played it because you had access to it. You didn't have to save up and buy it. Now, granted, we got some good discounts. I believe it was 10% on new games and 25% on used games. So the discounts were really good and really helped with my gaming. But I could just check out, oh, there's that new PC game out. We got 3 copies. I'm going to take that home and give it a go tonight. You know what? The next day, I sold the hell out of that game. We'd have to order more because I loved it so much. Or I could discourage people from buying it. Because back then, we had a money-back guarantee. That's right. If you didn't like your game... No, it wasn't money-back. Sorry. I shouldn't say money-back guarantee. It was a satisfaction guarantee. If you took a game home and you didn't get it, it wasn't your style... I believe it was within 48 hours, you could bring that game back and we would swap it out for another game. It might have even been 7 days. Not a money-back guarantee, but if you bought a $50 game, you didn't like it, bring it back, we'll give you another $50 game. It was your checkout. And we did keep track of this so people couldn't habitually do this. We would cut them off after 2 or 3, but that... so we would discourage people from buying bad games. We didn't want to sell Superman 64 to people. That wasn't our business. We wanted to get you into Symphony of the Night. We wanted to get you into GoldenEye. We wanted to get you something that you wanted to play. And it was just that environment that we built that brought in those loyal customers and really drove business. Something else we did that was really customer focused as well is people would bring in a used game that was still hot. Grand Theft Auto Vice City just launched. People are trading it in 2 weeks later because it wasn't for them. They got it as a gift. Maybe they had an extra copy, whatever it may be. Well, nowadays, they give you $20 trade-in credit if you're lucky. We had the ability, carte blanche, to just increase our trade-in prices for customers as long as we were still going to make a profit on it. So, and it had to be a hot game. It couldn't just be any title. But something like that, computers say $25 trade-in. We were selling it at $45 used. We would bump it up to $40 trade-in credit for that customer. Make them happy. We still make $5 profit. I'm going to turn around and sell it in the next 5 to 10 minutes because the game's flying off the shelf like hotcakes anyway. Why not help everybody out and make that quick transaction? So that was something else that we were given the ability to that was slowly stripped away, was the ability to increase trade-in prices, especially on products that we knew were going to move right out the door. And why not? That's an instant $5 for the store, where otherwise we could have told them 20, they would have held it, there would have been no transaction at all. So why not make that couple of dollars for the store? Anyway. Another bonus to working there with the trade-ins themselves is if you saw a rare game come across the counter and it pops up as $10 trade-in credit, I would tell them, I'll give you $10 trade-in credit. What I would do is I would take that game, stick it in my bag, put $10 in the drawer, and give them a $10 store credit. I just bought myself Puzzle Fighter 2, Puzzle Fighter 2 for $10 that I could go flip on eBay for $50. Happened a lot with rare games, happened a lot with out of print stuff. We were taking in older systems then, and there were some rare PS1 games. Bust a Move was another one, or no, not Bust a Move, Bust a Groove, the dance game. There was some rare titles out there, and Final Fantasy Tactics, they'd come in $10, $8 trade. I'd say, I'll give you, I'd offer them the fair trade price. That goes right in my bag, and $10 in the drawer. I'm not ripping anybody off. I'm just giving the customer what GameStop would have given the customer. And nobody ever said anything bad about it, so I just continued to do it my whole time there. And another thing that we could do back then is you would get a McFarlane case of toys. There's always one chase in those cases. I remember the one specifically that comes to mind is the Jerry Rice. He was playing on the Raiders at the time when they were doing the football McFarlanes, and they printed him in a very rare San Francisco 49ers outfit. So I broke one case. There it was. Pulled it off to the side, bought it, got my 10% discount, went home, sold it on eBay for $50 or $60 because it was a hot item at the time. And that happened all the time with toy breaks. Just another advantage that we used to have that I don't know, with all the junk they sell there now, I don't think any of it's limited or rare or worth jumping on first. Yu-Gi-Oh! First edition cards came out. I bought a box for next to nothing because we got like 30% on what they considered magazine stock, which they didn't even keep an inventory on. And that Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff, I sold it, I don't know, a year later for $100 or whatever. I probably paid $40 for it. So a lot of money-making opportunities presented themselves when we worked at the store. Now, I am making a two-part video. I do have a part 2 coming. It's probably going to come out tomorrow, because this video is going to be all about the perks and the golden ages of gaming and the awesome stuff that they provided us with back then. But part 2 is going to be the shenanigans, because we got up to some serious shenanigans that were very funny and very game store related specific, and stuff you just couldn't do these days. So I want to do a whole separate video on that. Going back to the product knowledge, I remember checking out, because we could check out anything, not just games. I would check out, when Dreamcast came out, I would check out Dreamcast controllers, so I could have 4 controllers so we could play tennis. I checked out the Samba de Amigo maracas so we could play Samba de Amigo. I had knowledge of so many games that you just humanly couldn't play unless you had access to a free library like that. Unless you were a billionaire spending, buying every single game that came out. Literally every new game, every Wednesday, I could take something home and give it a go. And that led to the amazing atmosphere where we all know games. People would come to us for game knowledge. People would come to us just to talk games. What have you been playing? What's out? Oh, I really like this. Is there some... I don't think people go to GameStop to have those conversations anymore. When I walk into a GameStop now, it's like this cluttered mess, and I don't want to be in there for more than a minute. Honestly, I haven't bought anything from GameStop other than maybe a used $5 game here or there, which I can't even remember. I remember the last big purchase I made from GameStop was Grand Theft Auto 5, which was 2012? I don't even remember. It was a long time ago. That was the last game I actually pre-ordered, went in and purchased at a big money price. It's been that long. When I go by GameStop, I look in and I don't even want to be a part of that scene anymore. It's a mess. It's clustered. The employees may or may not. They probably like games. Yeah, I'm not going to take that away from them, but they don't have the product knowledge that we used to have. You ask for suggestions or, I don't even want to talk to them because it's like this. They're so busy and hustled, and then they're going to try to upsell you on all this crap. I remember when strategy guides became a big thing because we're making, a $60 game or a $50 game new. Let's be honest, GameStop might be making $5 on it. It's very minimal profit margin. But a $20 strategy guide that they just paid $2 for, something in that range, there's your profit margin. So that's what they pushed. Yes, I remember when we first had to not just put out the game, but we had to put the strategy guide out. And every sale, do you want the strategy guide? I hated strategy guides. I was such a purist gamer back then. I hated doing that. And I remember when they first started making us push that, it was so frustrating to see. And then they started in with movies. I remember when our first movies arrived. I remember getting, I think I remember the first time in our stock box, I opened it up and there's copies of Joe Dirt and Memento and a few others, but those two really stuck out to me as like, so we're in the movie business now. And then the toys started getting more and more, and they started getting junkier. At first they were just, you get the really nice McFarlane stuff and a couple game related things, and that was it. There was no real toys. We were a software store, a game store, and not a toy store. And you could see the transition even way back then that it was happening. So just having a look at my notes here. Yeah, I mean, really, when it comes down to it, it was the Mecca. Yeah, Babbages was an amazing store. It really was, and it's a shame that it's become what it has become. When I was a kid, there was not even a Babbages. There was a couple stores you could go to. There was you could go to Lionel Playworld, or you could go to the Big KB. And that's kind of your choices on games. I remember I got most of my games from Lionel Playworld, which was a gigantic toy store where I grew up. And Lionel's was the place to go, and they had all the big games and all the systems. And I remember buying Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and Double Dragon. Not myself. My grandpa or my parents were purchasing me these games, but for whatever reason, Lionel Playworld was it. And I thought we had become that for that next generation. And unfortunately, it's lost today. And of course, digital media is pushing its way in, and that is the next revolution. But unfortunately, we're going to lose that camaraderie and that in-store brotherhood that we had back in that 99 to 2004. I have so many great memories of that time period, especially the early stuff from 99 to 2001. It was the best job in the world. So for all you people out there that these days, I feel sorry for you. I completely understand. I dealt with it at the end of my career there, but the early days of Babbages and GameStop, they deserve some thumbs up for those days. Granted, it was a whole different company then. It was a whole different hierarchy. I understand that. But boy, I wish and I hope that they can do something with these new store layouts to try to recapture some of that game store magic, because I, as a customer, would go hang out at what we had back in 99. I truly would. So anyway, thanks for watching. Look for part 2 tomorrow. It's a lot of fun talking about the nostalgia GameStop and Babbages, and I've got a lot of good memories I want to share with you guys. This is just kind of breaking the ice on my GameStop stories. So look for my other video tomorrow on shenanigans, and then if these are successful, we'll do a few more. Like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. I got some more gaming videos. I got some more wrestling videos. We're having a lot of fun here, and looking for a podcast coming soon as well. So thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon.